Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Take Back Mondays. I'm your host, Krista Molione, and I run this podcast to help everyone love Mondays more by bringing you some amazing guests. We're changing the world one business at a time. So I specialize in helping business owners, and today I'm so happy to have Mark Metry, and I'm going to tell you all about Mark in a minute. Come on the show, Mark. There you are.
Hey, Krista, how are you? How's it
Welcome,
going?
welcome. So, guys, Mark is. I met I met Mark because he had a podcast, and I started listening to his podcast, and he became nominated for the top voice of mental health on LinkedIn. So, who better should I invite than Mark to come join us today when we're streaming this? It's Mental Health Day, right? So, Mark,
Yeah.
since we first met, you've done a lot of things. You've published a book. You've become a certified nutrition coach, and now you're doing some cool stuff. So I want to just introduce you. Welcome to the show, and let you tell us what have you been up to.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Krista. It's great to see you again. And for me, like I've really been like trying to study and trying to learn all about like mental health for the last 7 years. And I've, done podcasts, I've done books, I've done so many different things. And like it recently hit me like earlier that a lot of the times when we talk about mental health, like mental health can be so complicated. And a lot of the times it can be hard for like the average person to be like, wait, what am I supposed to do for my mental health? And personally, for me, like the one area of mental health that I've always been super passionate about, I like wake up in the morning and like read studies on like nutrition is nutrition. And really, it's called nutritional psychiatry. And so, ever since then, many years ago, I've been talking about nutrition and food and how it impacts your brain, how it impacts how you focus, your performance. And I was just like, let me focus all my energy on this because, I look around the world today, whether people have mental health issues or physical health issues with chronic diseases, I think that food has a huge component in society that a lot of us are not really talking about. And I feel like I'm one of the few people who have like a certain perspective on food that's like common sense and has a lot to do with how it impacts our brain health and our mental health. And so I've really just been focused on the same thing, really mental health, but now it's more specific kind of niche or section.
Do you mind telling us, Mark, why you became interested in mental health? If it's not too crazy of
Sure.
a question.
Yeah, sure, of course. Yeah, so for me personally, um, I'd always suffered from social anxiety for a lot of my life. I had always suffered from other things like insomnia and also like some other health issues like asthma. And so I grew up as like a really, really shy kid, socially anxious. And eventually, when I was like 18 years old, I go off to college. I really experienced like my mental health decline. And, I become really overweight. I stopped sleeping at night. I become pretty seriously depressed. I start socially isolating myself. And, there's even a time where I was like suicidal. And so for me, like that's how my life occurred, And so when I went through that, I really had to lift myself up and really learn everything that I could to really just survive. And that's what I had to do. And then eventually over the years, started posting content online, And so for me, it was my own life. And I've also seen other friends and people close to me suffer from the same thing.
Okay, sorry. I just switched my internet. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. It's just there's just like a latency delay.
I'm I'm trying to find the better internet. So I have 3 routers to pick from. One more try.
Okay. Yeah, I mean I can hear you fine. It's just there's like a delay between our answers.
Okay. Sorry, my internet is bad. It's bad. I just switched it to a different one. Um,
I can hear you.
okay. Yeah, now I hope it will stabilize because I switched it. So there was a little bit of lag because I was trying to switch between my routers. Um, but it's fascinating what you said about like discovering something so basic like food that would be have an effect on our mental health. I don't think that a lot of people are talking about this, Mark.
Yeah. It's huge. You know, it's huge and like just as an example, like I see in the comments on your YouTube, someone by the name of Nay Warren. I don't know if it's a guy or a girl, but they say like is red 40 that much of an issue as people say? So what's really interesting, like in terms of how mental health and food is correlated, right? So like this is not like some conspiracy. Like all these things that I'm about to say are like well documented, but a lot of junk food companies in America, for the dyes that they use to like dye junk food red and yellow and all these other bright colors that they use a petroleum based dye. And basically, a lot of places in Europe, they're either not allowed to sell stuff with this dye, or if they sell it, they have to put a warning label outside of the package that says this may be dangerous to children and it may hurt their attention. And so they've done like meta analysis study, which is like not just one study, but it's a compiled set of studies looking at all studies within this category. And they did a meta analysis study on specifically red 40 dye. And they basically found that for a certain percentage of the population, I don't think it's that high, but for a certain percentage of the population, this stuff basically like triggers or causes ADD or ADHD in children. Now, like if the average person hears that, they're gonna be like, "Wow, Mark, that's some crazy conspiracy." But this is literally all documented in the science, and it's the reason why a lot of countries and the way that they regulate companies and their government, it works completely different than America, and that's a huge reason why part of why like the food specifically in America is really bad for people's mental health generally speaking. So that's just like one example of what Nay like asked in her question to just like highlight this is like a bigger problem than a lot of us think. And that's just like with one thing, dye. And there's so many other facets to it, but I just figured I'd share that with your audience. Do, 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 do.
One more time. It's usually not this bad.
Which mountain are you
Um,
on?
one
What
last
connection? Where are you at?
time. One last time. I'm gonna switch it. Hold on. Okay, say something.
Can you see me, hear me? Can you see me? Oh, Krista,
I do
can
not
you
know
hear
why it's
me?
so unstable.
Unstable. Don't listen to what they tell you on cable. You gotta ditch all the different kinds of labels. Drink up soup, lift it up with a ladle. Mm, mm. Krista, Krista, hey. Krista, Krista, hey. Stretch my neck. Krista, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but it's really bad. Can you
It's
hear me?
yeah, it's actually a lot better now. This is actually the best it's been the entire time. I
No,
can
but
actually
it's
see,
weird. So
I can actually see you and hear you
I
fine.
have sometimes bad. Okay. So maybe we're out of the bad period because it's just really strange. Come here, Ivy. What's wrong? What happened? Oh no. It's one of those days. Must be a mental health day. Oh my
I mean,
goodness. Come
it
here,
is
Ivy.
literally
Say
World's
hello.
Mental Health Day.
Oh no, Ivy, come here. Come here. This is
Hey,
Mark. Be
Ivy,
nice. Say hi.
how are
Say
you?
hi. No, you got to sit up. You're too short. He can't see you. So can you say
How's it
hello?
going?
What's wrong?
I love Ava.
What? You love your sister Ava? Well, that's good.
Oh, that's
Well,
beautiful.
Mark is here to. You know what? Mark is really nice. He helps people eat healthy and be healthy. Do you know one thing, Mark, that they do in France that they don't do in America is this week? It's in France. There's a tradition every year. They do something called La Semaine du Goût, which translates into Taste Week. And what they do for French kids is they cook the whole week. They cook every single day, all the classes, all the grades.
Wow.
Their teachers are in charge of teaching them about healthy eating.
Wow.
And today they made pumpkin soup in her class.
You made
Did
that?
you help? Did you help?
You made
there
pumpkin soup?
Pumpkin, potatoes.
No way.
What else? Cream. Yeah?
Did you like it?
Yeah?
The cream.
What was inside? Butter? They put butter. And Mark, guess what they're doing this weekend?
Tell me.
So the whole week they cook different foods and they talk about where the food comes from and they teach kids to eat healthy. And then Saturday they're having a huge farmers fair where all the farmers bring their local produce and they do like they weigh the pumpkin and they have the cows and they have
That's beautiful.
Farm produce. And the whole idea is to celebrate agriculture and
it's amazing.
Make the kids know where the food comes from and how important it is.
Wow. That's beautiful.
Yeah. And the meals, she has a hot lunch at school and it's all home cooked there. Nothing is brought in. They have big everything's made the day of. So yeah.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Your name is Evie?
Ivy.
Ivy. Nice.
Ivy.
I like your. Are you wearing a ladybug sweater?
Yeah. No. Ladybug onesie. Show what you've got on.
Wow, that's so cool. You look so cute.
Ivy, why are you so tired? Here, you lay down here. Well, at least you can hear me now, right?
Yeah, I can
hear me.
literally hear you and see you perfectly.
Well,
fine.
So this is something I don't understand. I feel like it's political because look, in France, we have public health care, right? And so the government, it's in their interest not to have sick people because since I've been in France, I have paid next to nothing. So in America, I have my thyroid removed when I was a kid because of unhealthy, probably environmental stuff. No one in my family had it, but I developed this huge thyroid problem when I was like 9 or 10. And so they took it out instead of healing me. Like they're just like, I'll operate. We'll just remove the thing. So now I have to take medicine for the rest of my life. So I've been taking levothyroxine since I was 10. And it's not a big deal. It doesn't have a lot of like negative consequences, although I'm very angry because, I'm thinking that they could have cured it, right? Now I know much better that there's all these things that you could do to heal a sick thyroid. But my point is, in America, these pills are actually quite expensive. So, and for people like me who are entrepreneurs, we have to pay our own health insurance. And so it's even more expensive. And when I came here, I got 6 months supply of the medicine for 15 euros. Do you understand? 6 months. 6.
I'm coming to
15
France,
euros.
Krista.
No, and since we go to the doctor all the time for different things, nothing. So in France, they have this universal 30 euro payment. So when you go to the doctor, no matter what it is, they say, okay, you pay us 30 euros, but probably like 30% of the population doesn't even have to pay that, because like older people don't have to pay. If you're unemployed, you don't have to pay. If you're disabled, you don't have to pay. If you're on medical leave, you don't have to pay. So like the 30 euros is the maximum. What do you think about that? So
I
mean, it's political. Why would we want to keep people
100%, of
sick or
course.
healthy? It's like, it
Yeah.
depends who's paying the bills, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't necessarily think it's like, a bunch, they're like, oh, we want people to get sick, but at the end of the day, it just comes down to incentives, and
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like, I think, I like the US, but I've also understood that like America is a country that has really like sacrificed all of its values for money, and so we're basically like worshiping the god of money, and so who cares? Like if people get sick, like, and for example, what's interesting too is that like there's like the same corporations out there that like create junk food, and they'll make a product for the US, and they'll make a product to be sold in France or the UK or wherever in the European Union, and the ingredients are totally different, because literally the US version, it's cheaper to make because the FDA hasn't banned certain ingredients that the EU has.
Yep.
And so, at the end of the day, that's really what it comes down to. It just comes down to money, comes down to incentives, priorities, so it's messed up. Like I have a similar, like I didn't get my thyroid taken out, but when I was a kid, I had a bunch of stomach problems. And so I got my appendix removed, and they told me, oh yeah, your appendix doesn't do anything. But then like later now they're like, oh yeah, your appendix actually helps to regulate like good bacteria in your gut microbiome, which is like literally like the cornerstone of health. You know what I mean? So it's really interesting.
There's two things. In America, it seems really common for people, first of all, to get your tonsils removed. And I've heard that this also is helping your immune system. So it's like protecting you from getting all the bacteria. So taking them out is a bad idea. And the other thing is the gallbladder. So many people I know, and you know why? This is all the side effects. People drink soda. So if you're drinking soda since you were a kid, you get addicted. People have literally Coca-Cola addiction, right? And then by the time you get to your 20s, you have stones, calcified stones in your gallbladder. And they're just like, okay, we removed the whole gallbladder. So I'm thinking, okay, so how healthy can that be? Because at least the stones were like concentrated. Now, when you keep drinking Coca-Cola, where does it go? Where does it go now? It's like burning holes in your stomach. And then people have so many digestive acid reflux, heartburn. They can't eat things. They get sick right away. And it's because the gallbladder was helping process all that stuff. And now you just take it away. It's like, oh, because it's good money, right? Operations, all these things, be in the hospital a few days, thousands of dollars bill. But it's sad, going back to nutrition. It's good that we talk, because right now I'm in France and you're in US. So we can kind of compare what's happening. And you're absolutely right about being incentivized. The French have, of course, been also attacked by fast food and junk food. Like we have McDonald's, we have in the supermarket, there's a lot of like processed cookies, for example, right?
Of course.
Whole aisle of cereal. And it's all coming from USA, by the way. I mean, it's these big corporation. Some of them are European, like Nestle. Nestle is a big money one, right?
Oh yeah.
But in general, the Europeans have stricter rules. So you're right about there's still a lot of things that are regulated in a stricter way, so they can't add too much junk to the food. So that probably helps, but it's actually really hard because what I don't understand, Mark, is how come we still don't know how to eat? Like if I go on YouTube right now and I look up, diet, nutrition, healthy food, unhealthy, right? It's a $1 billion market. And I'm thinking, but shouldn't we know by now? Like, like science, right? They told us, okay, here's what science keeps progressing, but there's things once they discover them, then that's it. Everyone knows. But with nutrition, the doctors never know. They're like, fat is bad for you. Cholesterol is bad for you. Then they're like, eat fat free. And then they do the opposite. They're like, okay, we decided that fat is okay for you. And Dean Orish and, these doctors are like, there's,
Oh
it's
my
like
God,
bad.
Dean Orish.
No, but it's bad. Why is that, Mark? Why do you think that we can't just make up one like discovery like we do with
Yeah.
every other part of the body, right?
Yeah.
Why do we
So I
keep
mean, I ask myself the same thing, and I think about this all the time. Number one, doctors are not experts in nutrition. They're not trained in nutrition. So honestly, like, I don't really think doctors should be giving nutritional advice, even though a lot of our society has delegated that position to give nutritional advice, which doesn't make any sense. So that's one. So at the end of the day, what you really have, doctors are just people, like literally just people like you and I. We all have biases, depending on our culture, depending on what our parents told us, depending on how we ate. A doctor is just a person who's just going to push all those biases like every other person, especially if they're not trained and it's not their subject matter expertise. So that's one, right? And then there's the other side of it, which is like the health and wellness industry, which continues to make more and more money every year, but people get sicker and sicker every year, And so I think, like, for example, like people like Dean Ornish and all these people who, are like vegan, plant-based doctors who believe in this ideology. I think a lot of it just comes down to like, when they were in school, this is what they were taught. Like they literally got validation and they got approval off studying, memorizing, getting good grades, and then like regurgitating this information. And so if you look at it, and if you even like watch any debates with these people, a lot of the times they're not critically thinking at all. They're just regurgitating things they've said 1,000 times and then like using their own moral superiority to justify their opinion. And so I see this happen all the time, and it's honestly sad. And what I would say is that we do know like what the normal human diet it should be, but it also depends on the individual. So, for example, right, if you are someone who you got your gallbladder taken out, you probably shouldn't be eating that much fat because your gallbladder is what processes it. So if you're going to do a ketogenic diet, that's probably not a good idea. If you are, if you have digestive problems, if you have stomach problems, if you have IBS, and all of a sudden all the doctors tell you, hey, you need to be eating more vegetables and fruits, you need to eat more fiber. Well, it's like for some people who have that issue, if you just throw in a bunch of fiber in there, even if it is healthy fiber from fruits and vegetables, that may actually cause more inflammation.
Especially raw. Am I right?
Sure.
Like, raw
but it really depends. Yeah, but it depends on the person. Like you can, the average person I'm sure can eat raw carrots, raw celery, lettuce, obviously things like that. But it depends on the person, right? And so, and it depends where they are in their stage. And so really like what we need to do is like, we need to, number one, like create a society, change the government to create regulations and create rules around this stuff so that people aren't just like running around like it's the wild, wild west. And then also too, I'd also say as well as like, there's also such thing as too much regulation. There's also a lot of food companies out there in America where they actually have good products. They have good food products, but they don't necessarily have like hundreds of thousands of dollars to pay the USDA to get an organic label. They don't have hundreds of thousands to put it in this store. You know what I mean? And so a lot of the times, like all the regulation is bad. There's problems with too little regulation. There's problems with too much regulation. So that's one. Number two, we need to change the laws around doctors, around education, around training. I don't mean this in any disrespectful way, but I would even say that a lot of like nutritionists and dietitians have no idea what they're talking about. They learned some curriculum 30 years ago and they're like regurgitating it over and over and over again. And the problem with social media is that you can just live in an echo chamber, and anybody else who disagrees with your opinion, you can block them. You can say, oh, how dare they say this? Like, I can't tell you how many times where I've seen like different posts on Instagram where it's like literally doctors and nutritionists literally just like posting straight up misinformation on food. And then I like leave a comment and I ask them a question. I'm like, how do you say that when this, and that? I either literally get blocked or they literally tell me like something on how I'm like attacking them or something like that, trying to like dissuade from like the objective, logical truth. And so I would say, like, to answer your question, like, we definitely know what to eat, but there's some certain people out there who are invested into an ideology and are really just like spouting their beliefs like religion because they have no data, they have no facts. And it's funny. And what I would tell people too is like, watch like debates on nutrition. Like that's what I do. I always watch debates from different doctors, people who believe in different things. And you can like really see most often, like some of these people have no idea like what they're talking about. And, you know, to do your own research and to critically think and to like understand and realize like the hierarchy of science, and how a lot of science, even science, a lot of the times a lot of times like they cherry pick data, you know, to fit whatever narrative they want.
Depending on who sponsored the study. So it's like almost like, you know, any politics with lobbying, right? It's like, well, we can pay enough doctors to say that this drug helped these people, or,
Literally.
you know, they participated in a paid study. And, you know, but there's, it's what's also sad, I think, Mark, is there isn't a lot of regulation about language. So what you said is like you can go on social media and these people, it's even credible, like who the heck are they and why are they authorized to say what they're saying? For example, you can call yourself a doctor, but you might be a doctor of chiropractic. And now, I don't want to attack chiropractors.
I've seen that a lot.
Because I honestly think a lot of chiropractors seem to be really obsessed with nutrition. Every time I've gone to a chiropractor, they started talking to me about like, you know, you should eat more fat because it will really help like with your spine, or like calcium because it will help. So I think they have good intentions. But when you go online and someone says, I'm a doctor, and if you eat this, you will die, or this is cancerogen, you know, and people just are like, whoa, yeah, I heard it on, you know, the news. Because today YouTube is the news. It's sad, but it's true. People have no idea who they're listening to. And even further than that, the food industry. So there are certain things that are protected, like the label organic seems to be very, very regulated. Yeah. However, what I've seen in recent years is people selling weight loss solutions under the name of all natural nutrition. And I've actually seen people post these amazing transformations where they lost like 100 pounds. And everyone's like, wow, how did you do this? And like, oh, I've been eating so healthy. And then they're like, if you'd like to find out more, click this link to find out how I lost the weight. And it's a trap that takes you to a funnel. And it's actually a powder or pills or, you know, just nothing natural about this. And what they want is that you subscribe to their subscription box. And it's like in the morning, you have like 2 shakes a day, 2 chocolate peanut butter bars per day. But it's all vegan, or it's all natural, or it's sugar free. So people are using labels to, for example, cocaine is gluten free. You know what I mean? Like we could
It's
put
also
out,
plant-based.
right? It's
Cocaine is also
plant-based.
plant-based.
It's plant-based. So people, marketing is very manipulative. But there
For
doesn't
real.
seem to be any problem with that. Like you go and you look at these products and they'll say whatever you want to hear, and they'll pay people to endorse their products. So you're like, well, if that celebrity took it, then, especially what I hate is athletes. When you see athletes, did you hear about that guy from Brazil who took the Coca-Cola away off the
Yeah.
table?
Yeah, that was
Um,
beautiful. Massey
Rivero, whatever his name is, he took the water and he put the
or
Coca-Cola away.
Ronaldinho.
Right. That was so good for me. I was like, finally, these athletes recognize that these companies that are endorsing them have nothing to do with health, right?
It's crazy. I think like Kim Kardashian just became like the chief something executive of like Impossible Burger. You know what I mean? So it's just straight up like it's playbook marketing. And obviously, like you and I, at least me, like I used to be in marketing, you're in marketing. So we all know like how this stuff works. And it's definitely messed up. And that's why like whenever I'm buying something, I never look at the front of the package. I always immediately look to the back, and so
Yeah, the marketing is misleading, right? It's like
it's
not because it's
terrible.
a pretty packaging that it's good for you, but in general, someone the other day, I was watching this YouTube and the guy said, "I have a golden rule, um, is just ask yourself, is this how God made it?" So, this guy was religious, and so
No,
he said, so when people are like, "Is this healthy? Is this healthy?" He was like, "Just ask yourself, did God make this? Like, is this the way God made this product? And if not,"
it's a good point.
I was like, oh, that's a good one. So Juana asks, what does Mark think of veganism? Can vegans get all their vitamins and minerals from a plant-based eating diet? I know the answer, but I'll let you answer.
Yeah, so here's what I would say. I would say, like for me, I like to look at biology. I like to look at history. Um, and the reality is there has never been a civilization in human history that was 100% vegan. It's never existed. It's not natural. People ate a tremendous amount of their calories and fats and proteins from animal products because a lot of different times it's a lot easier to like hunt an animal versus like, grow an entire field of like crops that's going to take you months and months. And then even then, it's not even going to be that much. And so yeah, I mean,
Or
I
you
think
could have a war, and in the old days, people would just come, like the Ukraine, Russia, they just walk in and take your land, right? So it's like today, or like Israel, Palestine, it's like, okay, today this is my territory, tomorrow it's yours, whatever, right? So farming isn't very sustainable in the old days.
right. And even if it is, like it's very hard. Like it's very like plants have very few calories, like even wheat and corn and things like that. Um and so what I would say is this, I would say it technically is possible for sure to be vegan. And if you can get like 1,000 different supplements that are like imported from all over the world to your house in America or wherever you live, it's definitely possible. But I personally, for me, like I'm not a fan of any diet that eliminates like an entire category of food that people have been eating. I'm not a fan of any diet that like eliminates an entire like macronutrient, for example, because a lot of the times like that's just not sustainable. It doesn't make sense. You're eliminating a huge source of protein and fat and a bunch of other minerals and vitamins that your brain needs. Like one of the reasons why, like personally for me, like people can eat whatever they want. I don't care. But personally, for me, like I'm very passionate about giving people the other side of veganism because number one, I actually used to be a vegan. And then number two, a lot of the times when people think of like, oh, I need to eat healthy, the number one thing because of all the propaganda is like, oh, you got to go vegan. You got to go vegan for you and the environment and all this stuff. But the reality is that's not true at all. Like, I wouldn't say a vegan diet is healthy whatsoever. You're literally eliminating an entire category of food that human beings have been eating for thousands of years. Now, is it possible? Yes, for sure. Our bodies are very resilient. If you were on an island and you had nothing but Pop-Tarts, I'm sure you could live for years. Like, you're gonna suffer in some way, but like, our bodies are very, very,
Right.
very resilient. So is 100% not the optimal diet, and then especially so, like, one of the biggest reasons is that a plant-based diet is definitely not a brain healthy diet. Like, you can ask any neuroscientist, you can ask anyone who's actually studied the brain and nutrition. None of them are vegans. None of them. 0%, because they all understand your brain needs, for example, omega-3 only found in seafood for the most part. And there's a bunch of other minerals and nutrients like that where it's either very hard to get them from plant resources, or you need to eat like 10 plates of plants to get the same exact thing that's in like a little piece of meat. Or it's just not there, like in the face of omega-3 DHA fatty acids that are basically only found in animal products. And so, nah, I'm not a fan of veganism for sure. But if you really want to, go for it.
Well, I mean, Mark, what you said about us being really resilient, like, I found that your body needs a break sometimes. So in my diet history, I would say I've gone through periods of like doing fasts. I realized that I can fast a long time. So I actually did a 12-day water fast.
No way, 12
a-
days?
And I was in a group where a certain percentage, this wasn't their first time, they were doing a 21-day water fast. And in the Orthodox religion, a lot of food
That's me.
things tie into religion, right? And so when I married a Russian, I had to convert to a Russian Orthodox church. And one of the things they do is they do 2 long fasts per year, okay? And so that really got me kind of into this whole thing. And look at Ramadan in the Arab religion. I think that it's kind of good to eliminate stuff, like not long term though. So like what you said, I think we need variety. And recently we've seen a new trend, haven't we, of all meat.
Carnivore.
Jordan Peterson's daughter has become a media person in her own right. And she's on Instagram, on YouTube, big time talk. She has a podcast talking about being a carnivore. And she had a lot of major health problems and she cured it. But what you said is, I really like your approach of personalizing what actually would be good for you, not following trends, not be like, oh, because she did it, or this person's vegan, I need to be this or that. You have to look at what's going on with you. And this will change over your life, because there's things I can't eat today that I used to, my digestion went way down and I had to like do a lot of things to get it back. And so I think there's
We can talk about that.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's bad.
That's very interesting. Yeah, I mean,
Very
here's what
bad.
I'll tell you. So
Yeah.
a lot of the times, like, for
I-
example, personally for me, I used to be like allergic to like eating oats and almonds and a few other things, but I'm not allergic to them anymore. And a lot of the times when you look at it, a lot of people have things that they're allergic to, and it has to do with their gut microbiome or
Yes.
their level to digest. So for
Yes.
example, like if you go vegan, right, and you're eating a lot of fiber, you're eating a lot of plants, what's going to happen to your stomach acid is your stomach acid is going to become less acidic. Okay.
More alkaline. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the truth, and then so it's not good or bad to be alkaline or acidic. Like, there's a level. Like, you don't want your stomach to be too acidic. You don't want it to be too alkaline. You want it to be somewhere in the middle. And so, for example, if you do that, then you actually may develop digestive problems because your stomach acid is too alkaline. Whereas maybe for the example, the opposite is if you're not eating enough plants, you're eating just carnivore, not even carnivore. Like, if you're just eating like fast food, you're eating like the American standard diet, there's no fiber, there's no healthy fats, your stomach is going to get too acidic. That's also going to cause problems as well. But like personally for me, like I had to follow like a step-by-step process to heal my gut microbiome. And once I healed my gut microbiome, a lot of like health issues that I had, a lot of the things that I was allergic to went away. And there's like an entire like step-by-step system that I can like walk you through down if you're interested.
Well, isn't
Um,
it what I've heard is like you can have SIBO. SIBO, is that a problem?
sure,
Like there
that's overgrowth of
parasites,
bacteria.
there's yeast overgrowth. Like it seems like
Sure.
today there's so many things that can mess up your gut microbiome. And then it's antibiotics can do that, right? It can cause overgrowth of yeast. So I've read a lot about this. And it's actually very tricky. Like I'm really happy that you have now studied this, but think about the normal person like me. It's like, okay, I'm going to try to do this and I'm going to try to do this. And it can get really complicated. But
Yeah.
I can tell you that definitely it is freaking confusing. So we should know these things, but so we know things, but we don't know anything, right? Nay asks, she wants to know if macros are good for managing weight. So there's been a lot of talk about fats, macros, and carbs. So instead of
Yeah.
worrying about the food groups, people are kind of dividing it into these three categories. Have you seen this?
Yeah, of
People
course. Yeah, I
talking?
mean,
Yeah,
every food in the world is made out of these three macronutrients: carbs, fats, or protein. Everything,
right.
fruits, vegetables, everything. What I would say in terms of macros is it's very interesting. It depends on the person. Personally, for me, like I'm in a phase of my life where I'm trying to grow. I'm trying to build a lot of muscle. I'm in the gym, so I'm trying to maximize my protein and my carbs to refuel my glycogen. Right now, I'm probably on a more lower fat diet than I would normally do, just for me and my goals right now. But what I would say is that I think it's a good idea to have a healthy balance of all of these things: protein,
Mm-hmm.
carbs, and fats, healthy sources of them, and I think that's the most important thing, is to have a balance, of all of them. And yeah, too, like if I, like one of the things that I like if I could say like three things, like three steps, in terms of like healing your gut really quick, is that, yeah, there are different gut issues, but really like number one is like what you've got to do is you've got to decrease the inflammation in your gut microbiome. You can do that through like when you eat fiber, like when you eat plant fiber.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't know that like our body actually doesn't know how to process fiber. Our gut microbiome eats that fiber and then it passes it on to us. And
Mm-hmm.
so like number one step to like eliminate inflammation in the gut microbiome for some people would be to either eliminate fiber for a temporary period of time or decrease fiber. So for example, like if you're eating vegetables like cauliflower and broccoli and Brussels sprouts, those have a lot of fiber. So if you're having gut issues and you're eating those all the time, what I would do instead is I would eat lower fiber vegetables like celery,
Mm-hmm.
like carrots, like lettuce, arugula. There's some lower fiber vegetables. So what I would do is, and like that's like what Michaela Peterson and all these people on carnivore are doing, is that it should be a temporary strategy to eliminate fiber, to eliminate inflammation. And then you can also eliminate inflammation temporarily through different supplements. Like you can supplement with like turmeric. There are some other supplements that you can take to decrease inflammation. And then what you do is like once you've decreased inflammation, then number two is you have to rebuild your gut wall. So a lot of the times people who have gut microbiome issues, their gut has been through so much like wear and tear and damage over the
Mm-hmm.
years that their gut wall has been pierced. And that's when a lot of the issues start, like SIBO, like IBS, like all these other issues. And so what you have to do is you have to rebuild your gut wall. And your gut wall is made out of a set of amino acids. And amino acids are protein. So what you need to do is you need to eat the 9 essential amino acids, protein that's found in food, healthy sources of protein. So, for example, all animal products give people a complete source of protein. With the exception of, I think, soybeans and like hemp, there is no plant that has all essential amino acids. So you basically have to eat a variety of protein, whether that's eggs or fish or meat or beans, whatever kind of protein that you can get. I would try to eat as many healthy sources of protein. And then number three is once you've rebuilt your gut wall, this process can take anywhere from like a month, 2 months, 3 months. Then what I would do is then you begin to repopulate the positive bacteria in your gut microbiome. Now, a lot of people talk about like probiotics and taking supplements. Honestly, what I would do is I wouldn't take probiotics. What I would do is I would eat a lot of prebiotic fiber, and that is usually comes from like fermented plants, like sauerkraut,
Kimchi.
kimchi. People talk about kombucha, all these different
kefir.
things.
Kefir in Russia.
Kefir is a big one. I love kefir. Yeah, I drink kefir all the time. Yogurt. Every culture, every place on earth, they have their own version.
I make my own yogurt. And this winter, I want to make my own sauerkraut because I realized it's not that hard to make your own sauerkraut. So, but I order kimchi online because I really like spicy food and I didn't find it. And so I was like, oh, I'll just order it online. But the sauerkraut I want to make myself. I think it would be fun.
Yeah, totally. I make my own fermented stuff all the time. It is actually pretty easy. And yeah, and so like that is like in the most basic, simplest way, like no matter what gut issue someone is having, that's like the 3 steps you need to follow, and you need to follow these in order, right? So a lot of people, they'll have gut issues and they'll be like, oh, I need to take probiotics. I need to eat sauerkraut. But the issue is like, if you haven't gone through the steps, decrease inflammation, rebuild your gut wall, when you eat that, it actually may cause inflammation. It may not even help you. You know what I mean? So you have to follow this step-by-step process. And it's really tricky, and so like that's what I did. I've helped a lot of other people do the same thing. It may look different depending on the issue, and obviously there's many different factors, but in the simplest way, that's really it. And your gut microbiome is directly correlated to your brain. So like the biggest nerve in your nervous system is something called your vagus nerve. And your vagus nerve is a two-way highway between your brain and your gut microbiome. And there's more signals that go from your gut to your brain, not from your brain to your gut. Most signals come from your gut sending messages to your brain. And like that's why they call the gut microbiome the second brain. And I talked about this in my first TEDx talk about like mental health and the importance of the gut microbiome. And so like that's really it. Like a pivotal step of health, of mental health, is restoring your gut microbiome. And so many of us have destroyed our gut microbiomes because of the society, because of the food, because of the stress. Like the two biggest sources of stress to your gut microbiome, number one is literal stress. Number two is your food. So those are really the two things that we have to look at. And if you can repair your gut microbiome, you will, I don't want to say you're going to solve a lot of your health issues, but you probably will.
Oh man. Well, I'm on a massive mission, Mark. So, and I believe everybody should be, is to take better care of their health. So we've got Juana who says she loves fermented foods, and Nay says pickles. Yes, pickles are great too. I should make some of those too. Justin wants to know what's a good balance between salads, meat, fish, chicken. Like, do you have? Well, again, Justin, he said it's personal.
I can answer. No, I mean,
it's some opinions about what would be a normal, healthy balance, right?
Yeah. So what I try to do is every meal, like I try to eat carbs, protein, and fat, right? So for example, if I'm looking at, lunchtime, for example, I have some kind of like protein, whether it's fish or steak. And then I have, again, I told you I'm kind of trying to aim for low fat. So if I'm, usually salmon has a decent amount of fat, but I still eat salmon. You can eat some salad with it. I also think like carbs are important too for like the long-term sake of your health, like healthy carbs, like things like, potatoes, sweet potatoes, fruits.
Well, for muscle repair, right? I mean, like like right now I'm not doing a lot of heavy sports, but if I were like gonna take a bike ride and ride like 30 miles, then I would want to have some carbs, you know. So I think we people have demonized carbs when really look, it's been a staple for, like what you said earlier. We have to use our logic too. If we look at society and we're like, no one has willingly been a vegan for like since our ancestors, so our DNA isn't really wired for that like on a lifetime basis. But we could eat whatever. We could probably eat tree bark for a year and be
Yeah.
fine. But what you said, like carbs, it's the same thing. I feel like in every diet around the world, just look at all the diets, and everybody has a staple of a specific carb.
Yeah.
Asia, all rice fields. Europe, potatoes and wheat. Like if you would do the Tour de France, you'd ride the bikes around France, you would see wheat fields everywhere, you know?
Awesome.
Because what do French people love more than their baguette? Okay. That's like, which I can't eat, by the way. So I've developed like unbelievable sensitivities, but I've been tested multiple times and they're like, no, you don't have any outright allergy. Like you're not gluten
They have no
intolerant.
idea. They don't
But the
know.
thing is, if I can't eat it without really being like bloated and feeling not good, don't even get me started, Justin. He's talking about wine and
She's in
cheese.
line.
Those are my weaknesses, but I'm really trying to be more mindful of that because I do think that I he knows. I do think that like sugar is my biggest evil. Like I'm just trying to eliminate sugar from what the only exception is I think like honey, like Manuka honey has some property or like real honeycomb. So if I go to the farmer's market, here we have like people who raise bees and it's all
Mm,
local bees. And I do believe that for millions of years, honeycomb was used even in ancient Egypt as like
for
a
sure.
elixir, you know, for your health. So I do think that giving up honey is like, you know, a little bit past my limit. But otherwise,
Yeah.
processed sugar, like wine, I'm trying to really stay away from wine because I love wine, but it turns into sugar immediately in your you know, so
Yeah.
and then it feeds the bad bacteria, right? So if you're drinking the wine, your body's like, yes, all the bad bacteria is like, yes.
You know, it's interesting. You know, I feel like if you look at like 10 meals that you're eating, I feel like if 9 out of 10 meals that you're eating are like pretty healthy, you're giving your body what it needs, then I don't really think it's a big deal if you have some cheese and wine or whatever you want to do. You know, and what I would say too is like I was addicted to sugar for years. And what a lot of people don't know is that especially if you've been eating it for a long time and you're a certain kind of person, sugar is literally a drug, you know. And
Oh
so
yeah.
the same way that like, you know, if you ever you know, like I've never faced this, but like you've talked to people who like have been to rehab, they've been to like, you know, things that like they've literally kicked like hard drugs and alcohol. There's an entire like step-by-step process to follow. And I think with sugar, it's the same, you know. And so like one of the
Absolutely.
biggest things that I tell people is like, if you focus on not eating sugar, not eating sugar, not eating sugar, that's not a winning strategy because you're probably going to eat sugar. And so what I would try to do is like put your energy, put your focus on what you can eat that's not sugar. So like put your focus on like what are
Mhm.
the protein snacks? What are the healthy sources of fat that I can eat? And what you'll realize is that if you can satiate yourself by eating protein and healthy sources of fat and healthy sources of carbohydrates, then you're gonna sort of like naturally not be inclined to eat sugar. And then what I would also say too is that you should always like wean yourself off, right? Like so for me, I used to like literally eat like a pint of ice cream like every night. It was crazy back in my days. And like one of the things that I had to do is like I had to either buy like frozen fruit and make my own ice cream at home with like a blender,
Mhm.
or you know, now luckily there's like a lot of different food companies that are creating a lot of alternatives. And like there's this one company, I think it's called like Rebel Creamery, at least here in the US, where they make ice cream out of like whole natural ingredients. They don't put like processed sugar. It's definitely still like, it's ice cream. It's a processed food, but
Hey, I make my own ice
pretty
cream
clean.
with my
Yeah, you
kids.
do. How do you make ice cream?
Williams Sonoma sells an ice cream maker. I think it's like KitchenAid brand or something. And you basically, you're supposed to use sugar, right? So you pour cream and you pour your sweetener in there, and then you have the salt. It's a special ice cream salt. And it's basically just 3 ingredients, and then you decide what fruit you want to put in there,
Wow.
whatever.
I need to get one.
But yeah, but honestly, what you just said, I've been like making a lot of non-dairy stuff. And you can make like pops really easy if you have a blender and you can use coconut milk, for example, put some strawberries in there, put some agave in there, and then mix it up. Put a banana, so like strawberry banana pop, and put them in it. Just experiment. You can
Sounds
even put
good.
fresh mint with raspberries is amazing. And this is where I'm going to get naughty. Put some red wine in there. And it sounds
ice
really
cream,
strange.
Krista?
No, listen, it's like it's Italian like shaved ice, like granata. Have you ever? And it's so good. It tastes like this dark, rich flavor. There's just all these cool recipes if you go online now. That's what I love about the internet is like we're not limited to like just one way of eating, right? Gabe says ice cream is his dog of choice. I'm lucky because I've never had a sweet tooth. I'm a good baker, so everyone was like, "Oh, you bake so well," but I never ate any of it. I'm naughty. You know what I love is salt. I'm addicted to salt. So I like and
nothing bad with that.
Yeah, no, I love salt. So like a cheese platter with wine, and that would be my death of me. But that's another thing we didn't talk about, overeating. So I actually had a woman come on. I do this woman only audio event every week.
Nice.
And we talk about mental health. And so
Excellent.
the main focus is like feelings of women, what women struggle with. Gabe comes all the time. He's our cheerleader.
Good job, Gabe.
Yeah, he's keeping it real. But it's really good because in this group, like people, this is on LinkedIn of all places, but people open up. They're like so honest about what they're going through. And I had a woman who is a food addiction coach. And you might actually want to meet her because if you ever encountered a patient who was like a really hardcore mental, like you're like, okay, I can tell you what to eat, but then if you're going to binge eat and you can't stop, you may need to talk to somebody, right? She's the person to go to. She's really amazing. Dr. Kristen. And she was talking about how, she has a lot of patience. And a lot of people they don't consider food like just to nourish themselves, or just to have a tradition. They also have just an obsession of emotional eating, using food like you would a drug. So you talked about rehab. These people literally kind of need rehab, but for food, for various things. That's pretty scary, but it exists,
Yeah, it's crazy. And like actually, if you look at it like like having an eating disorder is very common. And what a lot of people don't know is that eating disorders are actually partly made by the diet and wellness industry. And the reason why I say that is because, I know people who they've struggled with, like, for example, their weight their entire life. They've used food as like a tool to help them throughout life to cope. And a lot of them have been trying to diet for like 20 years. Doesn't work.
Yeah.
And if you talk to like some people within this, they'll tell you like, yeah, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, I started to only eat low fat diet, and I eat this and this and this and that and this and this and this and that. But then it's like people can't thrive on a low fat diet. So it's like they're trying to follow the ideal example. They do it, but then it's a recipe for their biochemistry to fail. And it's like the same thing with other people who try to like, eat low, very low calories by eating just like celery and carrots and peanut butter. And they try to like use that to like satiate their hunger when in reality their body needs food. So then all of a sudden they start binge eating, and they do that for like 5 years, and then it becomes an eating disorder. So I've seen this happen so many times where part of it has to do with the health and wellness industry and fad diets. The other part of it has to do with like I don't know if people know this, but like corporations literally hire food scientists. They hire food scientists to chemically dissect food, process food, and to engineer it to where when you eat it, it hits all taste buds in your mouth, and it creates this certain effect in your brain. And then the taste profile with the crunch and this and that and soft and the texture and all this stuff that you don't even know, that we don't even know. But they've studied psychology, they've studied the human brain, and they've created highly palatable foods that are literally designed to be overconsumed, that are literally designed to be binge ate. Like that's the other part of it too. And this is very serious. Like if you look at the mental health sort of spectrum and the different illnesses, eating disorders is actually like it's one of the most fatal, because a lot of people develop anorexia, orthorexia through this. And as a result, they end up like dying through malnutrition. It's unfortunately very common.
Also the opposite, right? Obesity. There's been so many. It's crazy. I've been watching on TV. They seem to be obsessed with documenting these poor people, and I think it's really sad. Justin wants to know, how many meals do we need to eat? So that's a good question, because I actually, when I started like with my thyroid issues, I decided to try to be more like towards keto, and what that means is intermittent fasting. And I don't really know if it's good or bad, but for me it's been good to eat less, I think, in general, because when you start developing digestive problems, which is probably due to my microbiome being messed up, every time you eat, it's kind of like, oh, is it going to be okay? Am I going to feel sick afterwards? Am I going to feel like really, really tired afterwards? And so for me, it's not really a pleasure to eat as it used to be. And so for me, it's like, in a way, like just giving my digestive system a break. So I've been doing a 16-8, 16 hours fast, 8 hours. And it's interesting because I'm never hungry in the evenings. So I don't like sugar, and I'm never hungry in the evenings. So like 99% of diet advice won't even hit me, because I'm like, cravings? What cravings? Sugar? Nah. So for me, it's like I get hungry around noon, and then I stop eating like by 7.
Yeah.
And I eat twice. I don't snack. I just like, I really break my fast, and then I eat, and then I eat again like 7. And I don't really eat any raw foods anymore. So once in a while, like I'll make a green juice, and I'll just put carrots and celery and spinach and all that in there. But I really don't digest well salads, like cold foods, and everything has to be cooked, warm, soup, steak, cooked veggies. So I'm curious.
You don't eat cold steak?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I guess that would be roast beef.
Well, no. There's steak salads. You can get.
True.
I actually have done that before. Grilled chicken or steak or salmon. All of those can be like a poke bowl kind of thing, for lunch, with avocado, with some red cabbage, some miso. I love miso. That's another one we forgot. Fermented Japanese, right? So what do you think about this? Is this question
it's a great question.
Hard?
Yeah, no, great question. So again, it goes back to like your goals, right? So personally for me, I'm eating like 4 meals a day, 5 meals a day with snacks, because I'm trying to really gain weight and grow muscle, So like that for me is my goal. And if you're a similar goal, you got to do the same thing. But here's what I would say, right? I spent 3 or 4 years doing intermittent fasting. And honestly, what I would say is I do not recommend it for the vast majority of people. Now, there are some people for sure who may find it helpful. But what I would and the reason why I say that is because like in order for your body doesn't just run. It needs to run on fuel, right? So of course, like, yeah, you could eat tree bark for a year, like your body's very resilient, but your body needs fuel to run. And so what a lot of people don't understand is that when you decrease the energy that you put in your body through, protein, calories, whatever, uh, you're actually technically decreasing your overall bodily function. So if you can intermittent fast and you can actually eat like 3 meals a day and you can actually get your nutrient requirements, then I don't see a problem with it. But my issue is like I don't intermittent fast anymore. I wouldn't recommend for anyone to do it because what happens in the long term is that it slows down your metabolism, and your metabolism is like the rate of like execution in your body at a biological level. So what will happen over time is that your digestion will slow down, your liver will slow down, a lot of your organs will sort of slow down, and then what will happen is you'll try to eat and it'll be a struggle for you to eat. It'll be a struggle for you to digest. So I've literally seen this happen so many times where people have had the same exact issue. And I tell them, like, start eating 3 meals a day. Like, don't do intermittent fasting anymore. And for a lot of people, they actually fix their results and they recover. And so the way that I would think about it is like, if you need to recover, like if your body, like there's something wrong, you need to recover, you're growing, you're developing, do not do intermittent fasting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But with that being said, what I will say is I actually am a fan of like fasts in general. I haven't done one in a while, but like, I don't know about 12 days, but like personally for me, I've done 24-hour fast. I've done a 48-hour fast. I've done a 72-hour fast. I think those done, occasionally, once, twice throughout the year, whatever that looks like for you, I think that is probably a better sort of way to like look at fasting rather than trying to do intermittent fasting. And again, you can intermittent fast, but what I would say is that like make sure you're still eating the food that you would eat for 3 meals. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
You have to be more careful. It's almost like veganism, where whenever you restrict something, you're a nutritionist, you're eliminating stuff that you need. Like I have literally a whole box of vitamins, and I know this doesn't replace the real deal, but like I take every day 3 multivitamins, 3 omega-3 vitamins,
3.
one vitamin D drops. So I'll take a little bit of that, collagen, protein powder,
Nice.
and green powder. So I've got like super greens, like wheatgrass and stuff like that, like a mix of, and then ashwagandha. Do you know what that is?
Ashwagandha, yeah.
Ashwagandha.
For
I
3
always
months.
miss it.
It's crazy.
And turmeric. I put turmeric with black pepper. Remember, can't eat it without black. So, and I'll put that on my vegetables. And so I use ghee, which is like, so I'm like pretty advanced with like the whole diet thing, I think, but I don't think you can ever be healthy enough. So Justin wants to know, he's eating 3 meals a day, a protein shake in the morning, salad at noon. I'm kind of against salad, and I think it's my French thing, because in France, salad is just, that's another thing. In America, there's just one big plate with everything on it. There's something really psychological and I think physiological about eating like one thing, removing it, waiting a minute, then eating another thing. So in France, that's how it is. They have the appetizer like in a restaurant, but at home, people do this as well. So a typical French lunch would be like a tomato or a cucumber salad, not mixed. So what they do is they would take like shallots. Shallots are like really thin onion. Slice up cucumber really fine, salt, pepper, and then a vinaigrette with white wine vinegar and pure extra virgin olive oil. So you have that and just a little bit, and that's your appetizer. And then the main dish would be a regular, like a protein with a starch and a vegetable, and afterwards you would have a dessert in France, And dessert can be something really small, like a piece of fruit or a yogurt.
Awesome.
People don't really eat like sweet desserts except on Sundays. Then you have like the family meal, right? But it's like everywhere you go in France, even people who are like in Paris, like working, they go out for lunch and they eat exactly that. These 3-step, and then maybe a coffee at the end, an espresso, right? And a nice cigarette. A cigarette would be good too.
The perfect image of health. Justin, what I would say is that if I'm eating 3 meals a day, can I do a protein shake in the morning? Yeah, of course, man. I mean, listen, what I would say is that, listen, unless like you're morbidly obese, as long as you're eating healthy food, like I would just keep eating healthy food, like I don't think, if you eat a salad or if you add too much protein, like I don't think you're gonna have a problem with that. And I think especially as a guy, you definitely need more protein for sure. Like I usually have 1 or 2 protein shakes a day. Sometimes on some days, like especially when I'm traveling, I have like 3 protein shakes. If something is lacking from like my regular meals, and so yeah, what I would say is that looks fine. And I honestly like the only salad that I'll eat is I like to eat arugula. Like arugula. It's like
love it. It's good for digestive.
It's
really
good for digestion.
Yeah.
It's also it also increases nitric oxide in your body, which essentially means that like from a performance or an exercise perspective, it actually technically means that your cells need less oxygen to do what you would normally do. So it actually like makes your entire system more oxygen efficient, and nitric oxide is really good for your heart. So like I eat that, and honestly, like that's all I do. Like I put like extra virgin olive oil on it. I'll put lemon, I'll put salt. Sometimes I'll put sauerkraut on it. But like I'm kind of the same way where like if I eat a salad, it's like a very simple, like 1-2 things on it, and then I'll eat that, and then I'll eat like my regular meal. Because the truth is that like salads have like almost no like energy. Like salads, what you're really getting there is you're getting micronutrients. You're not really getting energy. You're not getting a lot of calories, right? And I think calories, for example, is a word that's been demonized because I remember like in Coca-Cola and like the Olympics, that's where they really like popularized the idea of a calorie. And the reason why is because they said, as long as you're not eating too much, you can still drink a Coca-Cola because it's only 150 calories a day. And so I think over time, especially like in the health world, people are like, I don't count my calories or I don't want to talk about calories. And yeah, you shouldn't count your calories if you don't want to, or if you're not a bodybuilder. But at the same time, though, like I think a lot of us have forgotten that calories are units of energy. And so it obviously depends on the person, but like according to like the USDA, for example, the average person, generally speaking, needs 2,000 calories a day. If you're a guy, I think the average is like 2,500. If you're a woman, it's like a little bit less. I don't know. And so that's also an important thing to consider too, of like, if you're not, it doesn't have to be exact, but if you're not, generally speaking, hitting your caloric needs, and this happens especially with people who eat healthy, because healthy foods, natural foods, are naturally low calorie. Like I one time worked with like a client, and they ate a salad for lunch, they ate a protein shake, they did all these things, and then we counted up their calories, and it's like, yeah, they're eating 1,500 calories a day, they're eating 1,200 calories a day. That's going to lead you to low energy. That's going to lead you to a low metabolism, which is going to destroy your digestion. It's going to make all your organs overall function less. So I definitely think calories overall are very important. And that often gets like, misconstrued, and so keep in mind that salads have almost no calories. Vegetables in general have almost no calories except for like potatoes, sweet
as
potatoes.
a man, I would think that if you're eating only a salad at lunch, you're going to increase the risk of your snacking or overeating in the evening, because by the time you get your dinner, you're going to be starving. Like, unless that salad is like a steak salad with, or like, what do you call that with boiled eggs? Salad niçoise in France.
Salad.
We have that. Yeah, like something big and substantial, right?
Yeah.
No, we could talk all day. It's crazy why we can't just figure this out. but I'm happy you seem to have a really good head on your shoulders about this situation. Everything you said doesn't sound extremist or too critical, because I
You're gonna
think
go
you're right.
carnivore.
Yeah, online it's like either you're
You're gonna go vegan.
carnivore.
They're gonna kill you.
Yeah, no, it's very political. My God, right? And I don't judge people. I'm like, please find what
I
works
definitely
for
judge
you.
people. No, I'm
Oh, well, you have to. But
I
it's
try
true that
not to.
food is making us sick. So it's like we have to figure out. And it's so sad when you love someone and you just watch them kind of like, for example, you've probably
Yeah.
seen people in like a bread coma, like they just ate a bunch of like carbs with no protein, and they're like, oh, you're like, you know, there's just so many situations where food is medicine. Yeah. No, but this is great. We went way over time, but it was too fun to talk to you, and we had such bad
So much
internet.
fun.
Now it just
Yeah.
like totally went back to good times. So thanks for sticking around, giving me this extra time with you, Mark.
Of course.
Been so nice to catch up. So when are you going to publish like a cookbook or like a brain book? We need more books.
For sure. I mean, what I'll tell you what I am doing right now is like right now I'm trying to take my YouTube channel really seriously. So like if people look up
Oh,
my name,
okay.
Mark Metry, on YouTube or Google or whatever, definitely check out my channel.
You're
And
a
basically
favorite.
what
He wants you to
and
come
basically
back.
like yeah, I'm happy to come back. And like literally I'm making like all these different videos about all these different topics that people are looking up about food and the intersection between your energy and mental health. So that's like the number one thing I'm trying to do, and just trying to get
I like
information
it.
out that way.
Well, I really like that because there's about a dozen people that I follow on YouTube who are so good, but they've been making those videos for years and years and years. And it's crazy because I'm like, how can I keep watching them and still be interested? Doesn't that show you something? No, but it's like, on other topics, it's like, how much can I learn about LinkedIn, for example? I'm like, after a while, I'm like, okay, I kind of know what I'm doing here. And you know what I'm trying to say? I'm not going to
Yeah,
spend like my lifetime talking about LinkedIn.
right.
But food, it's like, are you kidding me? We could just keep going and going. And then, and I should mention that Justin is a cook. So
Excellent.
he's supposed to be doing his YouTube channel about food, because he's
That's
he's a
awesome.
really, really good cook.
That's awesome. I cook
Yeah.
too. I'm definitely gonna come up with a cookbook for sure sometime in the future.
Oh, Justin has subscribed to your channel.
Woo!
I love it. I love it, Mark. You've
Let me
given
know
some
how it
great
goes,
advice.
Justin.
Great advice. So we'll definitely be talking to you down the road. I think more people need uh to ignore the food industry, ignore the advertising, ignore the
Yeah.
marketing, and just focus on logic. Like, why would this be healthy for you? Don't you see that this is a terrible idea?
It's crazy. I
Yeah.
had so much fun with you, Krista. This is fun.
Yes. Thank you, Mark. Okay. You take care. We'll talk to you soon. Okay. I'll be
Peace out.
subscribing
Thank you,
too.
everyone.
Okay. Bye. Take care.
Peace out.